Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc earlier on this program insisting his government now has a formal plan to address alleged foreign election meddling. What's different this time? Well, for one thing, they're launching a formal inquiry, and for another, as you heard there from the minister, they have opposition buy-in. Does that mean it'll work? Let's bring in the front bench to talk about that. With me here at the Conservative Convention, Denise CLA with Hill Solutions, and La Presse's Ottawa Bureau Chief Joël Denis Belvance. And with us from Calgary, Sabrina Grover. She was a federal Liberal candidate in the 2021 election. She's now a principal at Shakti Strategies. And over in Ottawa, Kathleen Monk is the former director of communications to Jack Layton and the principal owner of Monk and Associates. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you this evening. JD, I'll start with you here. Do you think the minister is accurate in his assumption that with opposition buy-in now to the person who's leading and to the terms of reference for the inquiry, that there will be sort of less partisanship around this?
I think so. I think it will lower the temperature, the political temperature. And if the opposition parties ask questions about foreign interference in the House of Commons, the government will be able to say, let the judge do the work that needs to be done. So I think it will contribute to that. But I would make a following link between that announcement today and next week, Mr. Michael Chung's visit to Washington. He's going to Washington to testify in front of the Committee of Congress that is looking at foreign interference, specifically China's interference. And the government could not afford, the Trudeau government could not afford to see Mr. Chung go there without having any announcement on the foreign inquiry, in my sense, because Mr. Chung could have said the government is still dragging its feet in terms of launching a formal inquiry into this affair, a serious attack on our sovereignty. There's nothing more dangerous than a foreign country trying to influence our institutions, in my sense, and that could have been problematic for the government and expose what the government has been doing and saying about foreign interference not being taken seriously by this government. So this was, I think, a calculation the government made to make sure that this announcement was made today before Mr. Chung went to Washington.
I think it's a really good point, Kathleen, that in that instance, the testimony that is expected in Washington from Michael Chung, but also in all the other instances that this could be brought up as the House comes back a week and a half from now. This allows the government to be like, actually, what you wanted is going to happen. And I'd imagine we'd kind of see the fizzling out of this issue that happened over the summer really kind of continue.
Heat back up for sure. It's hot. The weather's gotten hot after Labor Day, and for sure I think that it's going to get even hotter on this issue when the House returns on the 18th. But it's interesting because for 6 months, the story broke on foreign interference really in February. So for 6 months, the opposition has pounded away at the government and really inflicted some serious damage on them. And today you saw a very confident, almost a very pleased with himself Minister LeBlanc come out there and repeat over and over again how they have unanimous consent and that all of the recognized parties in the House, agreed on these terms and on the commissioner who they've appointed. But there's still lots of, questions, I think, that remain. Some of them you brought up with the minister on the show about the foreign agents registry, about what Mr. Chong will say in Washington when he speaks there. But also, whether this commissioner, I wonder, can even meet the timelines as set out by the terms of the agreement. They're pretty aggressive. The commissioner has 5 months to basically deliver the first report. It's got to be delivered by February. And there's some musing whether she can actually achieve that. And also on the partisan political side, there's some musing about whether the Conservatives can give up this issue and actually really just let the inquiry play out without constantly still attacking the Liberals on foreign interference.
I sort of have the sense, Denise, and I'm wondering what you think, that they actually have some political incentive to do so. And I see that as it transpired over the summer, right? It's like every party in the opposition, when they were able to talk about affordability, would prefer, it seems, to talk about that over the issue of foreign interference. Not to minimize it, right, and it was big for a number of months, but I think there is a sense politically that Canadians are very concerned with the cost of living right now, and that's what they would almost rather be talking about.
That is it exactly, and we think about this space that we're in where, the Conservative Party is homes, affordability, but let's make no mistake, this is a massive win for the Conservatives in terms of the Liberals finally, the Liberal government finally putting forward an ethics, a commissioner that all parties can agree with. And you'll recall back when the former commissioner was announced, there was questions around, was there all-party consultation? So, like, look, is this something that's on the back burner? The fact that the pieces have expanded beyond Chinese interference and now Russian and the words foreign actors, any. And I think it's good for Canadian democracy that this is a well-respected judge that is in there to do the work that all parties were asking for.
Do you think, Sabrina, I mean, I found it interesting, both the Conservatives and the NDP, and not surprising at all, given the degree to, how many months it took to arrive at this decision, they're both claiming credit, right, for pushing the government to this position. Do you think they'll get any credit in the minds of Canadians?
I don't think so. I mean, I know Denise said it's a win for Conservatives, but I think it's more just a win for Canadians and a win for the issue moving forward. I think, as Minister LeBlanc said earlier on this show, the Liberals have already made progress on addressing this issue, and they have been making that progress since 2015, right? I think in the minds of the opposition parties, this is an issue that came up in the last 6 months or in the last 12 months with the last election. But it hasn't been that way, and that's why we had NIASCOP come into force earlier than that. That's why we had the intelligence agencies do election foreign interference investigations prior to this. And so I think really what this commission will do is provide some more information, continue to provide transparency to Canadians, and in the minds of Canadians, make sure that they feel secure in the way that our institutions are protected against foreign interference, make sure that they feel secure in the way that they interact with our institutions, and feel secure in our democracy. But I don't think it's going to, necessarily be credited to one party or another. And I think broadly, as has already been said, like, the political heat has been turned down on the issue, and I don't think it's going to come up much further than the statements that Mr. Chong is going to make in the U.S. I think beyond that, I think the issue's mostly just going to be focused on information from here on out.
I think the caveat to that is a little bit it will depend on what comes of the inquiry, really. I mean, I think it's easy to presuppose what the outcome will be, but there could have been other stuff that's happened even in the interim of David Johnston's report and right now, right? And I say that because there's new directives about information sharing with the ministers, JD, things like that.
And that's critical, and you made a good point in your interview with Monsieur Leblanc about the future of the foreign industry,
Agents Registry, yes.
Yeah. When is it going to come up? Now,
he said this year, which is actually more than the Prime Minister said today.
Yeah, and Mr. Mendicino had let it known that it would be tabled, if possible, before the end of June. It was not possible, but I expect it to be tabled in this fall, probably in the early weeks of the fall session. But the opposition parties could still put pressure on the government to go ahead with that, because there's unanimous consent in the House of Commons about the need for that registry. And so...
well, not completely. There's some Liberals who have come out with their own petition.
I know about that, but that's, I see...
They're a minority, yes.
Quasi-unanimous, then.
Quasi, yeah. Very close to unanimous. Yeah.
But that's still a tool that is needed, I think, to combat foreign interference. And there's a wide support among Canadians, I think, for a registry. And security experts say this is a key tool that we need to have. Other Five allies do have it, and we need it in our toolbox as well to fight foreign interference.
I want to actually say something, and this is part of what I think every party wants, is that process, the due process.
Yep.
What does it look like? What are the mechanisms? And so certainly, the step of having this commissioner in place that all parties can agree, and then, as you said, what's the outcome? What's the follow-through? Thinking potentially for a next election in, we don't know, right? 18,
but also,
20
let's
months.
just stop for a second and say all the parties agreed to something. Like, I don't even remember the last time I've heard anything where that ends up being the case. It's a moment in history, I think. Let's see how long it lasts. Okay, we're going to take a quick break.